Emily was a bright and cheerful 6-year-old girl, loved deeply by her family and the small community she lived in. Her laughter was infectious, and she had a knack for making everyone around her smile. But Emily's life took an unexpected turn when she was diagnosed with a rare and mysterious illness that slowly began to weaken her body. It was a disease that baffled doctors, leaving them with few answers and no clear path to a cure. Every day, her parents, especially her mother and father, watched in helpless agony as their little girl, once full of life, struggled to get out of bed, her energy slowly drained away. For weeks, Emily's condition fluctuated, but never for the better. Some days, she could sit up for a few hours, even manage a small smile when her parents tried to make her laugh. Other days, she was completely bedridden, her face pale, eyes dull, and energy drained. Her parents were determined to do everything they could to make her feel comfortable and loved. They tried various treatments, hoping for a miracle. But with each passing day, Emily's condition worsened. Her once bright eyes grew dimmer, and the laughter that once filled their home became a rare sound. Despite all the medical care and attention, it became clear that there were no answers. Doctors offered only vague explanations, and none of the medications seemed to help. Emily's mother, Laura, spent sleepless nights beside her daughter's bed, holding her hand and praying for relief, while her father, David, tried to remain strong for their family. Every night, he whispered to Emily that everything would be all right, even though deep down he feared the worst. But through it all, there was one constant presence by Emily's side: Max. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a loyal companion, a guardian, and a best friend. He had been with the family for years, a German shepherd with a gentle soul and an unwavering devotion to Emily. Max had always been protective of her, but now, more than ever, he seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. The bond between Emily and Max was undeniable. While her parents fought to keep hope alive, Max was there, curled up at the foot of her bed, his watchful eyes never straying far from her. Every time Emily winced in pain or seemed uncomfortable, Max would nudge her gently with his nose, as if to reassure her that he was there. He would often lie beside her, his presence comforting her, offering the silent support that only a pet could provide. Max would sleep beside her bed, refusing to leave her side, no matter how late it got or how many times her parents tried to coax him out of the room. His loyalty was unshakable, and his love for Emily was clear in the way he would lick her hand when she reached out to him in her weakest moments. One afternoon, as Emily's health continued to decline, her parents sat together in the living room, silently watching their daughter sleep. The quiet hum of the house was interrupted only by the soft clicking of Max's nails on the floor as he moved about the room. Laura and David exchanged worried glances, both knowing that they had exhausted all options and that their daughter's condition was beyond their control. "Why can't we help her?" Laura's voice cracked, her frustration and heartbreak palpable. "Why is she suffering like this?" David squeezed her hand tightly, though his face was filled with sorrow. "I don't know, Laura. We've tried everything. The doctors don't have answers. All we can do is be here for her." It was then that Max trotted over to them, as though sensing their despair. He looked up at them with his calm, wise eyes, then turned and padded softly to Emily's side. The small movements of the dog were enough to shift the atmosphere in the room. Max's presence was a reminder that, despite the pain and uncertainty, there was still love and loyalty. The family might not have the answers to Emily's illness, but they had each other, and they had Max, a bond so powerful it felt like it could conquer anything. As the days passed, Emily's health continued to deteriorate. She spent most of her time in bed, barely able to speak, but always reaching out for Max when the pain became unbearable. It became clear that no matter how much her parents loved her, they couldn't fight this battle alone. Max, the loyal dog who had always been a quiet presence in the background, now took on a much more important role. He was Emily's protector, her comfort, and her constant companion. But Emily's family refused to give up. They had seen too many miracles in life to lose hope completely. And even in the darkest moments, they clung to the belief that Max might just be the one to show them the way. The world of medicine had failed them, but perhaps there was a chance that love, pure, simple, and unwavering, could still work its magic. Emily's battle was far from over, and Max's loyalty would be the one constant that helped guide her through the storm. As the days grew longer and her condition worsened, the family braced themselves for what was to come. But in their hearts, they still held on to the belief that no matter what happened, Emily was not alone. She had the love of her family, the loyalty of her dog, and the strength to fight on. This was a story of hope, resilience, and the quiet strength that can arise from even the most uncertain circumstances. Emily's fight wasn't over yet, and neither was Max's unwavering support. Together they would face whatever the future held. After weeks of exhausting treatments, hospital visits, and the helpless feeling of watching their daughter's health deteriorate, Emily's parents, Laura and David, were struck with the devastating news from the doctors. Their beloved daughter had passed away. The doctors confirmed that Emily's immune system had failed, and despite all efforts, she had succumbed to the rare disease that had slowly drained her life. They said there were no signs of life, no breath, no heartbeat, and there was nothing more they could do. The medical team expressed their sympathy, but in their eyes, Emily's fight was over. There was no hope left. Devastated, Laura and David could hardly comprehend the words they were hearing. For a parent, hearing that your child is gone is unimaginable. The sense of loss, grief, and shock was so overwhelming that they couldn't grasp the finality of the situation. Emily had always been their bright light. Her infectious laughter and joy had filled their home. Now, that light was extinguished, and all that remained was a cold emptiness. The weight of the words, "She's gone," echoed in their minds, and still, it felt unreal. The parents began to make arrangements for the funeral. A small ceremony was held at home, as was Emily's wish. She had always loved the quiet, simple moments with her family. They couldn't bear the thought of a large, formal service, so they decided to keep it intimate, surrounded by close family and a few friends. Everyone who knew Emily had their own piece of grief, but none felt it as deeply as her parents. Max, the family's loyal German shepherd, couldn't understand what had happened. He had been by Emily's side every moment of the illness, always lying next to her, offering comfort during her pain. He had watched over her during the darkest moments, sensing when she needed him the most. Max had always been protective, and through his eyes it seemed as though Emily's health was just a temporary struggle. But now, in the midst of all this chaos, Max's heart couldn't accept the idea of losing her forever. When Emily's body was placed in the wooden casket, dressed in her favorite dress with her beloved stuffed bear by her side, Max stood in the room, refusing to leave her. He sat by the coffin, his large, mournful eyes fixed on Emily's face, as if he was waiting for her to wake up. His ears perked at every sound, and he would look up expectantly when someone entered the room, as if hoping for a sign, a movement, anything that would show that Emily was still there. Max had never left Emily's side before, and now, with her still, lifeless body lying in front of him, he was in turmoil. He barked, not in an aggressive way, but in a desperate attempt to bring attention to what he knew in his heart wasn't right. Max's barking echoed through the house, but no one paid him any mind. The mourners were too wrapped up in their grief and disbelief to notice his actions. It was as though they had all resigned themselves to the idea that Emily was gone. But Max didn't accept it. He couldn't. His instincts told him something was wrong, and his loyalty to Emily urged him to keep vigil by her side, even when the world seemed to have moved on. David, Emily's father, stood near the coffin, shaking as he tried to come to terms with the unthinkable. His hand trembled as he touched Emily's cold fingers. He couldn't let go of the image of her laughing, playing, full of life. He had held her when she was a baby, cheered for her at school events, and helped her with her homework. Now, all of those memories felt like they belonged to another lifetime, one that had been stolen away too soon. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "My little girl. How could this happen? This isn't real. It's not possible." He wanted to believe that this was some kind of horrible mistake. Perhaps the doctors had been wrong. Perhaps Emily wasn't really gone. He looked down at his daughter, hoping, praying for some sign of life, anything at all. His heart ached with every passing second. Max, who had been silent for a moment, suddenly let out a sharp, urgent bark again. He didn't stop. He paced back and forth beside the coffin, trying to gain the attention of anyone who would listen. His deep brown eyes locked onto David, his body tense with desperation. Max had always been in tune with his family's emotions, and right now he could feel his owner's grief. But he also felt a strange, unshakable instinct that told him this wasn't the end. It was almost as if Max believed in some kind of miracle, a belief that Emily wasn't truly gone. But despite his cries for help, no one seemed to hear him. David, still in shock, continued to kneel beside Emily, holding her hand as if somehow that would bring her back. The room was silent except for Max's persistent barking, which echoed through the empty corners of the house. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as everyone, lost in their grief, missed the warning signs that Max was desperately trying to communicate. The entire situation felt surreal. How could Emily, the vibrant, full-of-life little girl, be gone? The thought was simply too unbearable. Yet in the quiet, in the midst of all the grief and confusion, one thing was certain. Max refused to let go. His devotion to Emily, his belief that she was still somewhere, even if unseen, was something no one could deny. The family had lost a piece of their heart that day, but Max would stay by their side, holding on to the love he knew they all shared, until the time would come when perhaps a miracle would unfold. As the funeral ceremony continued, an atmosphere of sorrow and disbelief hung heavy in the room. Friends and family stood gathered around, their faces grim as they tried to come to terms with the loss of young Emily. The sight of her lifeless body in the coffin was almost too much to bear for everyone who loved her, especially for her parents. They stood quietly, broken-hearted, with empty eyes, struggling to understand how someone so full of life could be taken so suddenly. But amidst the quiet sobs and mournful whispers, something remarkable happened. Max, the loyal family dog, who had been lying quietly by Emily's side the entire time, suddenly sprang to his feet. His ears were perked up, and his eyes wide with an urgency no one could ignore. Without any warning, Max rushed over to Emily's coffin, barking loudly and frantically. His paws scraped against the floor as he tried to pull the casket towards him. It was as if he was trying to drag the very essence of Emily back, desperately searching for something. His frantic actions startled everyone in the room. Some of the mourners stood frozen in shock, not knowing what to make of the situation. Others whispered nervously, unsure if it was just a moment of confusion. But Max's behavior grew more insistent, his barks louder and more desperate. It was as though he knew something no one else did. Amid the chaos, one of the doctors who had attended Emily during her illness, Dr. Lawrence, stepped forward. He had remained silent during the ceremony, but now he couldn't ignore the strange behavior of the dog any longer. Intrigued and concerned, he approached the coffin and looked down at Emily, lying so still and pale. His trained eyes couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "I've seen this before," Dr. Lawrence muttered to himself. "It's possible. She could be in a state of suspended animation. It's called pseudo-death. The exhaustion, the stress. It could have caused her body to enter a deep coma-like state. Feeling an intense need to act, Dr. Lawrence motioned for the family to step back. With trembling hands, he carefully opened the coffin. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. There, under the soft light, everyone gasped in disbelief. Emily, though pale and unresponsive, was still breathing. Her chest gently rose and fell in a faint but unmistakable rhythm. The room erupted in a mix of shock, relief, and utter astonishment. Emily's body had been in a deep, comatose state, but it was clear now that she had not died. Her parents, initially frozen in disbelief, rushed to her side, their faces pale with shock but quickly turning to hope. Dr. Lawrence knelt beside her, checking her vital signs more thoroughly. "She's alive," he confirmed with a breath of relief. "It's a miracle. She's in a deep state of hibernation, but she's not dead. We need to get her to the hospital immediately." Max, having watched the entire scene unfold, was beside himself with joy. He barked excitedly, wagging his tail uncontrollably, sensing that something incredible was happening. The family, in a state of shock and overwhelming gratitude, quickly moved Emily to the hospital, all while Max stayed by her side, never once leaving her. The rush to the hospital was frantic. Emily's parents could hardly believe the reality of what was happening. Their daughter, whom they had thought was gone forever, was still alive. They clung to each other, their tears mixing with the disbelief as they rode to the hospital. When they arrived, the medical team immediately took over, and Emily was quickly placed under observation. Her vitals were checked, and although she remained unconscious, her heartbeat was strong, and she was stable. It was clear that the worst had passed. Hours later, Emily finally began to stir. Her eyelids fluttered open, and the first thing she saw was the familiar, comforting sight of Max's face. His large brown eyes were full of affection and joy, his tail wagging furiously. Emily blinked a few times, trying to process the reality of what had just happened. She looked around, feeling disoriented but safe. The moment she locked eyes with Max, a flood of emotion hit her. She had survived. She was alive. And the one thing that had kept her going, the one constant in all the darkness, was Max. "Max," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with relief. You're still here." Max barked happily, his joy unmistakable before jumping onto the bed to nuzzle against her. He licked her face gently, as if he had been waiting for this moment for what felt like forever. Emily wrapped her arms around him, tears flowing freely as she hugged him tight. She had never felt so thankful, so full of love, and so connected to the world around her. Max's loyalty had saved her in ways beyond what anyone could have imagined. The bond between them was unbreakable, and Emily knew, without a doubt, that she owed her second chance at life to the dog who had never once left her side. As Emily hugged Max, she realized just how much he meant to her. Not only had he been a companion during her darkest days, but in the end, it was his unyielding love and loyalty that had brought her back from the brink of death. This was a moment she would never forget, an unforgettable miracle, thanks to the love and devotion of a dog named Max. After Emily regained consciousness, the atmosphere in the hospital room shifted dramatically. Her parents, overwhelmed with emotion, embraced their daughter as if they had been given a second chance at life. The tears in their eyes were not just from sorrow, but from a deep sense of relief and gratitude. They had feared they would never feel the warmth of Emily's hug again. But here she was, alive and breathing. Their hearts swelled with love for her and for Max, who had never once given up on her. Emily's father, his voice trembling with emotion, looked down at the faithful dog who had saved his daughter's life. "Max, you saved my daughter. I don't know how to thank you. You're not just a dog, you're family, you're a hero," he said, his words breaking through the heavy silence in the room. Max, still beside Emily, wagged his tail furiously, as if to say, "I'm just happy she's okay." He nuzzled her hand, sensing her touch as she gently petted him. There was no need for grand speeches, no need for more words. The bond between them was already clear. It was a bond that went beyond words, beyond understanding. It was pure and unconditional love. As Emily's parents continued to embrace their daughter, the room filled with a new sense of hope. Their world had been turned upside down just days earlier. But now, they felt a deep sense of gratitude for the miracle they had just witnessed. It was as if fate had intervened through Max, the dog who refused to let go. The idea that a pet could play such a pivotal role in saving a life seemed almost too fantastical to be true. But there it was. Max had done it. The family wasn't the only group who had witnessed this miracle. Word had quickly spread throughout the community, and soon, people from all around began to recognize the unbelievable turn of events. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had heard of Emily's ordeal arrived at the hospital to offer their congratulations and to see the girl who had been revived by the love and loyalty of a dog. The miracle was on everyone's lips, and the town began to see Max in a new light. People started to realize that Max was no ordinary dog. He wasn't just a pet. He was a hero. His actions proved that love, loyalty, and determination could transcend the limits of human understanding. This wasn't a story of just a dog who got lucky. It was a story of true bravery, of a bond that could never be broken. One of the most surprising changes came from Carly, a classmate of Emily's. Carly had always been skeptical of Max, often questioning whether animals could truly feel the deep emotions that humans did. She had teased Emily in the past for being too attached to her dog, making jokes about how Max was just a dog. But now, seeing the bond between Max and Emily, witnessing firsthand how he had never once left her side, she felt a deep sense of guilt wash over her. Carly approached Emily's hospital room, her eyes red from crying. As she entered, she looked at Max, who was sitting quietly by Emily's bed, watching over her with the same unwavering loyalty. She stood still for a moment, her heart heavy with regret. Finally, she spoke in a soft, almost broken voice. "Max, I was wrong," she said, her words filled with sincerity. "I didn't understand what true love and loyalty meant. I didn't realize how much you loved her. I'm so sorry." Emily looked up at her with a small smile. "It's okay, Carly," she said softly. "Max never cared about what anyone thought. He just loved me, and that's enough." Carly wiped her eyes and nodded, visibly moved by Emily's kindness and forgiveness. It was as if Emily's near-death experience had not only taught her something about life, but had also allowed her to teach others about forgiveness and the power of love. Max had not only saved her life, but had helped heal a rift between friends. It was a lesson that no one, especially Carly, would ever forget. The community, too, began to change. They started to understand that there was more to the relationship between humans and animals than they had previously realized. Max had shown them that sometimes the most extraordinary things come from the most unexpected sources. A dog, who had been thought of merely as a companion, had become the hero of the town, a symbol of loyalty, hope, and unconditional love. The story of Emily and Max would live on in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed it. It wasn't just a story of a girl coming back to life. It was a story of how love, loyalty, and faith, whether from a human or an animal, could overcome the greatest of odds. And in the end, it was a story about how a little dog could change everything. As the town of Laurel Springs gathered in the heart of their community park, a sense of unity and deep gratitude filled the air. The event, organized by the local community, was dedicated to honoring Max, the dog who had saved Emily's life in the most miraculous of ways. It was a day of celebration, not just for Emily's recovery, but for the profound bond that had been witnessed by the entire town between a girl and her dog, a bond that transcended the ordinary. The park was filled with familiar faces, neighbors, friends, and strangers who had heard of Emily's story. Some of them had been skeptical at first about the connection between humans and animals, but now they were witnesses to something greater than they could have imagined. The crowd stood in quiet anticipation as a small statue was unveiled. The statue, placed in the center of the park, depicted Emily and Max in an intimate moment of friendship. Emily was shown sitting with Max by her side, her arm around him as if she were holding him in a moment of quiet gratitude, a symbol of their unbreakable bond. It was more than just a statue. It was a tribute to the unwavering loyalty and love that Max had shown, and a tribute to the resilience of both Emily and her family. People would come from far and wide to visit this statue, to reflect on the lessons it represented about life, love, and sacrifice. David, Emily's father, stood at the front of the crowd, his voice shaky but filled with emotion as he addressed those gathered. "Thank you, Max," he said, his voice breaking. "You are not just a loyal friend. You are the one who saved my daughter. You are an irreplaceable part of this family, and we owe you everything. You've shown us what true loyalty, love, and sacrifice look like. You've given us a second chance at life, and we will never forget that." His words echoed through the crowd, and many in the audience found themselves wiping away tears, touched by the sincerity of the moment. For the people of Laurel Springs, Max had become more than just a dog. He was a hero. He was living proof that love and loyalty could triumph over even the darkest of times. The community, once divided and often cynical about the relationship between humans and animals, had been transformed by what they had witnessed. Max was no longer seen as just a pet, but as a member of the family, someone capable of acts of extraordinary courage and selflessness. As the ceremony continued, the atmosphere was one of reflection. The community came to a collective realization that they had been blind to the value of animals in their lives. It wasn't just about what a creature could do for them. It was about what they could give in return: love, loyalty, and even the sacrifice of their own safety and comfort. Max had given everything for Emily, and in doing so, he had taught them all a powerful lesson. Carly, the girl who had once questioned Max's loyalty, now stood quietly in the back of the crowd, her eyes filled with respect. She had seen the transformation in herself and in the community around her. She had learned that true love wasn't just about words. It was about action. It was about standing by someone no matter what, through thick and thin. She had once doubted the power of an animal's love, but now she understood. Max's sacrifice had shown her what it really meant to care for someone, unconditionally. The ceremony marked a turning point in how the town viewed not just Max, but all animals. They no longer looked at them with indifference, but with a newfound respect. Many people spoke of adopting animals, not just as companions, but as guardians, as family members who could provide something invaluable in return. Max had not only saved Emily's life, but had ignited a spark of change in the hearts of everyone who heard his story. As the sun began to set over Laurel Springs, the crowd slowly dispersed, but the memory of the ceremony would live on. The statue of Emily and Max remained in the park as a testament to the power of love and the strength of a bond that could not be broken by time or circumstance. It was a reminder to all who visited that loyalty, friendship, and sacrifice were not limited to human relationships, but were qualities that transcended all boundaries. From that day on, Max was celebrated not only as a hero, but as a symbol of the unbreakable connection between humans and animals. And as the years passed, the people of Laurel Springs would always remember the day when a dog named Max taught them all the true meaning of love, sacrifice, and the power of loyalty. As the days passed, Emily's recovery began to unfold in ways that seemed almost too miraculous to believe. What had once been a fragile, sickly little girl fighting for her life was slowly transforming into a symbol of strength and resilience. The love and care she received from her family, especially from her parents, combined with the constant, unwavering presence of Max, made all the difference. It wasn't just the medical treatments that had brought Emily back from the brink of death. It was the deep emotional support that her family and Max gave her during those long, agonizing months. Max had been there when no one else could truly understand the depths of her pain. He had sat by her side, comforted her when she was scared, and given her the strength to push through the darkest moments. With each day, Emily became stronger. Her body slowly regained its vitality, and her spirit, which had once felt so fragile, began to shine brightly again. For Emily, the world outside had once seemed so distant. The school she had once loved seemed like a lifetime ago. Her friends, her classmates, and her teachers had all been part of a world she thought she would never return to. But as she began to feel better, she found herself yearning for the normalcy that school could offer. It wasn't just about the lessons or the activities. It was about regaining a sense of self that had been lost in the shadow of her illness. Emily's parents, seeing how much she wanted to return to school, supported her every step of the way, making sure she was ready both physically and emotionally to face the world again. They encouraged her to take her time, to ease back into her routine, and to never rush her recovery. When Emily first walked back into her school, it felt surreal. There was a sense of both excitement and apprehension, as though the familiar world she once knew had changed in her absence. But the moment her friends saw her, they ran to greet her with smiles and laughter, their excitement clear as day. They were thrilled to have her back, and they couldn't believe how strong she had become. Emily felt a surge of pride as she hugged her friends, knowing that this was a new beginning, not just for her, but for everyone who had watched her fight and overcome so much. It wasn't easy at first. Her body was still recovering, and there were days when she felt exhausted. But Emily was determined to push forward. She immersed herself in her schoolwork, finding comfort in the familiar activities she once enjoyed. Slowly but surely, she started to regain her sense of normalcy, and the energy that had once felt so distant returned. But it wasn't just the physical recovery that changed Emily. It was the deep emotional transformation she underwent as well. In many ways, her ordeal had reshaped who she was. No longer was she the shy, introverted girl who had been afraid to speak up in class. Now, Emily was more confident, more driven, and more compassionate than ever before. She had been through so much, and it had given her a perspective on life that few her age could truly understand. It was this newfound strength that propelled her to take on a new mission, to raise awareness about the healing power of animals. Emily understood better than anyone that the bond between a human and an animal could be a life-changing force. She had experienced it firsthand with Max. It was not just about the companionship they shared. It was about the deep, unconditional love that Max had given her when she was at her most vulnerable. Max had been there through everything, and Emily knew that his presence had played an integral role in her recovery. She was determined to share this message with others. It was during this time that the idea of animal therapy at her school was born. Emily's school had always been a supportive environment, but it was clear that there was a need for something more. She approached her principal with the idea of creating a therapy program that would bring animals into the school to help students deal with stress, anxiety, and the emotional challenges of everyday life. Emily spoke passionately about her own experience, explaining how Max's companionship had helped her when nothing else could. She told her school that animals, like Max, had the power to provide comfort and healing that went beyond what humans could offer. Her principal was moved by her story and immediately saw the value in such a program. With the support of her school, the animal therapy program was launched. and it quickly became a success. The school brought in trained therapy animals to visit students, providing them with an opportunity to bond with animals who were specifically trained to offer emotional support. For Emily, the program was a dream come true. She knew that it could help other students the way Max had helped her, but Emily's journey didn't stop there. She wasn't content to simply share her story and start the animal therapy program. She wanted to inspire everyone around her to believe in the power of perseverance, loyalty, and love. And she did so in the most unexpected way, by sharing her own experiences, not just in speeches, but through her actions. She became a mentor to other students who were struggling, offering them guidance and support as they navigated their own challenges. Whether it was a friend dealing with a difficult family situation, a classmate struggling with stress, or someone who just needed a listening ear, Emily was always there to lend her support. Her story, once one of pain and illness, had become one of hope and strength. She knew that her journey wasn't just about her recovery. It was about helping others find their own strength and resilience. As the years passed, Emily's story became more than just a local legend. It spread throughout the community, and soon it reached the ears of people far beyond her town. Emily had become a symbol of what it meant to never give up, to fight for the things you love, and to appreciate the relationships that matter most. Her bond with Max had become the cornerstone of her identity, and together they showed the world the true meaning of loyalty and unconditional love. Emily and Max's journey had taught her, and everyone who heard their story, that the greatest victories often come not from grand achievements or accolades, but from the quiet, steadfast love that we give and receive from those who truly care. Emily's life after her recovery was a beacon of light for others. She became an advocate for animal therapy, sharing her story in schools, hospitals, and community events. She worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the healing power of animals and the vital role they play in helping humans heal emotionally and physically. She had seen firsthand how Max's loyalty and love had given her the strength to survive, and she wanted others to experience that same bond. Emily's determination to help others continued to grow as she became involved in various community initiatives. She wanted to make a difference, not just for herself, but for everyone who had supported her on her journey. The story of Emily and Max was no longer just about the girl who had survived a rare illness. It had become a powerful message about the strength of the human spirit, the importance of loyalty, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. As Emily grew older, she continued to live by the values that had shaped her journey: love, loyalty, perseverance, and gratitude. Her life had been touched by a miracle, and she had made it her mission to share that miracle with the world. The bond she shared with Max, her faithful companion, would always be the foundation of her life, a constant reminder of the power of love and the unwavering belief that, no matter how difficult life may get, there is always hope, and there is always a way forward. Emily and Max had shown the world what it meant to love without conditions, to fight without giving up, and to always keep moving forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Together they had become a legend, a symbol of hope, love, and the unbreakable bond between a girl and her dog. Their story would continue to inspire generations to come. As the story came to a close, the powerful message about sacrifice and unconditional love from animals resonated deeply with everyone who had followed Emily and Max's journey. Max had proven that love isn't bound by species, and his devotion had saved Emily's life. Their bond wasn't just a simple connection between a girl and her dog. It was a profound testament to the power of loyalty, courage, and the unspoken understanding between them. Max's determination and love were what gave Emily the strength to survive, and in return, Emily showed him a love so pure that it became the foundation of their remarkable friendship. In a world where people often look for miracles in the most expected places, Emily and Max's story served as a reminder that the greatest miracles can come from the most unexpected sources. Their friendship defied the conventional boundaries of what a bond could be. It was not just the loyalty of a dog or the courage of a young girl. It was a unique, inseparable connection built on trust, compassion, and a love that couldn't be broken. Max had been there for Emily in her darkest moments, and in return, Emily had become his source of hope and love. Their story also taught an important lesson about the profound and unconditional love animals have for us. Max's actions were proof that animals can be just as devoted, protective, and caring as any human could be. His devotion wasn't just a matter of instinct. It was a testament to the deep emotional connection he shared with Emily. This connection didn't need words to be understood. It was felt in every gesture, in every action, and in every moment Max had spent by Emily's side. In a world where true, unconditional love can sometimes seem scarce, their story reminded people that love, in its purest form, often comes from the most unexpected places. Max and Emily had become more than just a girl and her dog. They had become a symbol of what true friendship looks like, a bond that is unbreakable and timeless. Their friendship was a living example of how love and loyalty can overcome even the most difficult of situations. It was the kind of bond that didn't need to be explained. It was simply understood by anyone who witnessed it. In a time when the world could sometimes feel uncertain, their story became a beacon of hope and a reminder of the beautiful things that can happen when love and loyalty are given freely. Their friendship became an example for everyone to follow. It showed that sometimes the most meaningful relationships in our lives are the ones we least expect. And through their journey, Emily and Max proved that the most precious things in life are not the ones we seek out, but the ones that find us when we need them the most. Their love for each other became a model of what true, unbreakable friendship looks like, a friendship that could withstand anything life threw their way. Max and Emily's bond was a reminder that no matter how hard life gets, love, whether from a family member, a friend, or a loyal pet, has the power to change everything. It's the kind of love that can bring miracles, heal wounds, and inspire others to believe in the extraordinary, even in the most ordinary moments. Their story would continue to inspire, showing that true friendship is a miracle in itself, and no matter where it comes from, it is always worth cherishing. Share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another amazing story. Together, we can shine a light on the power of doing what's right. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.